love to see more black and brown filmmakers and filmmakers of color and black filmmakers do stuff like this because we need it. There's new ideas
Yeah.
needed in Hollywood, man. You're talking about 56 billion or more, like in revenue not earned because they're not promoting to our people in the community. When the West Africans sailed to the Americas long before Columbus and everything else, and
Hmm.
there was a really good study from a scholar from Harvard, a black scholar from Harvard, that talked about finding coca in mummies,
Hmm.
how it arrived in Egypt. The only way it could arrive in Egypt if it was trading, which means West Africans and Egyptians sailed, which we know, and they sailed to the Americas, and they brought the influence there as well too.
Hmm. So I think one of the big things recently that really piqued people's interest when it came to not necessarily just sci-fi but science in general is the Webb telescope going up
Right.
and getting those images back, and people are like, okay, that's kind of creepy, like freaky kind of thing. I've never imagined like having the conversation of how big the universe is, and then understanding that there may be life somewhere out there, who knows. And now with the government revealing like, okay, yeah, there's some things that have been happening, we
Hmm.
kept some stuff under wraps, but some of these things we don't know what it is.
Hmm.
So it's like a lot of those explanations have been really piquing people around extraterrestrial life, but then kind of scaring people because you really don't know the depths of what is there, what's known, what's unknown, what's been kept away, what could be quote unquote living next door to you. Like it's just everyone's kind of really peaked around this topic right now.
I think we don't know the full truth of what's going on.
Yeah.
We could research, we could have intuition, we could talk to a lot of people going to conspiracy sites. Like, I mean, I remember going back in 1999, I was on Above Top Secret when nobody knew about that site. It was kind of
Hmm.
everyone was talking about stuff at that time. I was 19 years old. I was in university, and we were talking about, like, alien conspiracy theories and what's going on with the government, what the government's hiding from you, like what's the programs, like guys coming out talking about eyewitnesses in terms of experiences, and with the images now that you're talking about,
Hmm.
I I view that with a grain of salt because I think manipulation of images can happen.
Yeah.
I don't think NASA has a very dark past in history.
Very true.
Um, you know, I have a friend who wrote a script about that, and I've read about that and studied a lot. You know, it was defected Nazis that started NASA,
Hmm.
and you know, there's a lot of things that go with that. Like, I mean, but even before that, you have ancient African society from Egypt to Kemet and everything else that studied the stars.
Right.
You
Right.
have old Indian Vedics that studied the stars and astronomy and astrology, and that was the first. The Greeks
Hmm.
went to Kemet, and they went to Egypt to get their knowledge. So a lot of this stuff happened way before they came up with
Right.
all these things, and before Europeans said that, well, we discovered the stars. No, the stars have been in ancient Africa and the rest of the Middle East, everything else, a very long time ago. The study of it,
Right. Right.
and the fact that NASA has such a dark past. Um, do I trust the images? No, I don't trust them fully. Do I
Yeah.
trust? Do I trust the fact that for 40 years plus we haven't gone to space? No, I think we have gone to space in black projects. You know, but basically not known to the public because it's all privatized and you know segregated from actual public spending. So like you're not really aware of it. Having a lot of friends in the military and other things that I'm speaking to, and what they witness, and the fact that they had gag orders and been muzzled for saying certain things, leads me to believe that everything that they put out there is questionable.
Right. Right.
Existence itself, like existence, our existence is questionable. Because of the manipulation of history itself,
Yeah,
and the
you don't know
fact
what's
that
what.
you go to the Dogon tribe in in East Africa, and they're also spread to South Africa, and they talked about Anunnaki, and they talk about, like, the space people and everything else, and they, at that time, when the German scientists and anthropologists and the archaeologists had interaction with them, you know they had no interaction with Europeans at that point in time, and the things that they were saying to them were like out of this world. Speaking about Sirius, speaking about star systems that they never knew about.
Yeah.
What is ancient African intelligence you're talking about from the tribes? And the fact that a lot of people don't talk about that. People don't talk about the ancient knowledge that happened in Africa, that happened in the Middle East and India and other places like that. And for people, like, people are now becoming, oh wow, like this is what this Mars looks like, or whatever else it is. You have somebody like Billy Carson that went online and he talked about, he had images of Mars basically with water in it. You know,
I haven't seen that,
yeah, Billy Carson did a recent interview that he was talking about Mars having water on the surface.
which is not supposed to look like Mars is supposed to be frozen. If it even has, if anything, like
Right, right, right.
temperature
But
wise,
if,
it's not
if,
supposed to
if
even be able to produce
right, right. But
water,
if there's blue on the
supposedly.
surface, that means water.
Yeah.
Reflective nature of it, that means it's water. So if that's the case, then it changes the whole dynamic of how you look at Mars. So if that's the
Yeah.
case, then are we really
Which
seeing the
again,
real picture of
it's
Mars?
right. So that's what I'm saying. It goes back to you just believe that the images that you see are the ones that you're told this is what it actually is when you don't really know for sure if one is there, um, two,
Right.
what it looks like, what's occupying, if it's occupied, what resources, like we don't really know. And even again with the Webb telescope, they said that the images came back in grayscale, and then they determined what colors it would be based off of grayscale. So
You
it may not be
grayscale
that vibrant.
grayscale could be black and white and gray.
Right. So it doesn't mean that it's something that is vibrant purple. It's just that's what we determined. That's what it should reflect. But it's like
I, I, I
who knows?
it's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting, Rashad, because I work in film, and I work with colorists.
Hmm.
Top colorists with studios and everything else, and they do color on movies, right? And if you take something that's grayscale, right, you could turn something into anything.
Right.
You could color that any way you want to color it. You could also, like, strip it of color.
Yeah.
You could strip
Yeah.
images and videos of color easily. That you just basically strip all the data of color, and you strip it, and then you're like, okay, here's the image, right? Like, sometimes you do that with certain looks to, like, make it pop, and then and
Hmm.
then you focus on your focal point, like the center of the frame, and then you add color to it.
Hmm.
So, could there be manipulation involved? I think there can be.
Yeah.
What is there to say that there's a manipulation? And then you look at things like, the whole Vatican itself, and the fact that they came out and said that they interacted with aliens in the 1930s, and they got a crashed craft, and then the U.S. government came and picked up the craft, and we took it back. And then you wonder to yourself, okay, why does the Vatican have a telescope?
Yeah. It's this it's the question behind the statement that nobody really focuses on that question. Like, what are you looking for from the Vatican? Like
But the
you're not
question too, the question too, Rashad, is not only what are you looking for, but what did you find
that you're not talking about.
that you're not talking about? What do you
And I
have in the
think that's what.
archives that you're not talking about? And why do you have 10 miles of
Let's see, because you asked
archives?
me what movie did it. You asked me what movie did it. Stargate was a movie that like really messed me up because it was again a situation where there's alternative worlds, which
Right.
it's you ping out to wherever you ping out to. I don't understand. I understand, but I don't understand a black hole. Like what's on the other side? Nobody knows. It's like those kind of thing. Time warp is very possible if someone knew how to utilize it. So it's there's so many areas when it comes to science fiction, quote unquote, for people that are listening instead of watching. Um, there's so many areas in that there's so much knowledge that is already there, and there's so much knowledge that isn't there, but we just don't know the difference between the two.
Or they don't want you to know the difference
I
between the
watched,
two.
yeah, I watched a documentary with it was a Navy
Right.
pilot, Air Force pilot, and he was saying how they fly towards the South Pole, but the South Pole has a restriction border of like a couple hundred thousand square miles, and supposedly he flew too close to it, and there's like again, this is theories and all other kind of stuff. There's a big hole in
Right.
the South Pole, and he was like there were things flying in and out of it, and supposedly like that's a transport area for specific kind of UFOs,
Hmm.
which the military knows about it, and they say if you go anywhere close to it, you're arrested, detained, and you probably won't come back where the end of Earth is at because the Earth is flat. So it's like you have things that are really there, and then you have like other little theories that get thrown out there that actually could be the truth. So people just kind of get
Yeah,
lost in
yeah.
the
Some
shuffle in
some
most
things
cases.
some things are out there too, but then sometimes you gotta look at the out there things,
Yeah,
and then like um dissect it and see if you dissect exactly those type of things and you see exactly what's bullshit and what's not bullshit.
right.
You know,
I don't think
and
people
it's
think
like
that far though.
well, I mean, for me, it's kind of like okay. Another thing too is why is everyone in Antarctica? Like what you're
Yeah,
saying. Like why is it all every single nation has a piece of Antarctica, but yet you don't have civilians exploring Antarctica.
right. Not allowed to.
You could go and visit certain places, but certain places you can't go to.
Yeah,
You can visit
the
Antarctica.
restriction is
You want
real.
to check on it. There's certain restrictions on it. So why put restrictions? And then this goes back to what I would like to say as neo-colonialism.
Hmm.
This is a form of neo-colonialism, restriction of travel. They restrict your
Hmm.
travel. Before it never used to be restricted. When the West Africans sailed to the Americas, long before Columbus and everything else, and
Hmm.
there was a really good study from a scholar from Harvard, a black scholar from Harvard, that talked about finding coca in mummies,
Hmm.
how it arrived in Egypt. The only way it could arrive in Egypt if it was trading, which means West Africans and Egyptians sailed, which we know, and they sailed to the Americas, and they brought the influence there as well too,
Hmm.
which also lends to the fact that okay, you're allowed to go different places and travel and trade as you will, but now because we live in a neo-colonial era, you're not allowed to travel to certain places.
Hmm.
You're not allowed to travel to do certain things, and people don't understand how deep that is because you don't have the freedom of travel.
Yeah.
And you need to have a passport and a certain passport to travel there. And if you could travel to that certain place with this passport, there's still restrictions in that place that you travel to. Like, say for example, okay, I have a Canadian passport, I have a U.S. passport, I'm traveling to Antarctica, but you're not allowed to go in this section. You could go for like a tourist
Right.
vacation, right, and do exploration and trekking and hiking in a certain area, but don't think about going here.
Right. Right.
You know, so the old explorers of old in the ancient world, from the Middle East, from Africa, India, other places, and the native and the indigenous in South America, um, explored. You're allowed to explore, without a passport, without invisible lines that are borders and everything else. We
Hmm.
don't live in a borderless community. We live in a
Right.
border community because we're victims of what it is neo-colonialism, and Stokely Carmichael even speaks about that.
And I
There's
think that's
line,
what's intriguing. Like it's a very mind-opening conversation. Even when I travel internationally, you fill out the customs form and it's like, where are you going? Where are you staying? How long are you going to be there? Who are you visiting? When are you leaving? What do you plan on purchasing while you're here? Do you plan on taking money back with you? Do you plan on bringing any? It's like there's a question sheet that makes you one become very cautious in whatever country you're in, because then it's like, can I get in trouble for doing this? Can I get in
right,
trouble for going here? So it's like you kind of start staying away from things, and it's great as long as you're traveling within what they like to call the tourist zone. Once you step outside of that, then you see the reality of this country that is beautiful, and it's like, oh, this is the real life.
right,
Like, this is what is really going on here. And like my biggest seeing of that was being in Cape Town. Like, inside of Cape Town, it looks like you are in San Diego or in Miami. It's just
right,
a
right,
beach town, nice houses, cars,
right.
everything. You start driving out into the countryside, it's miles of 10 houses. And it's like, y'all have all this wealth from these vineyards that are here, but a bulk of your people are living in these 10 houses. And then you have this area, which you're calling like the tourist downtown district, that looks like United States. How is that dynamic that vastly different?
Well, you see
And
the inequality, um, because my wife is African. She's from Morocco.
Mhm,
Um, and I have friends from South Africa. I spent a lot of time in Africa, and
mhm,
um, when you have oligarchs that control certain countries that are accustomed to getting the benefits of neo-colonialism in
mhm,
terms of exploitation of natural resources, and the lack of nationalization of companies that should be owned by Africans, you get the top echelon creating programs or not having that trickle down effect to the rest of society, which leaves rampant poverty because they want it that way, because they need subjects.
right,
A king needs, in order for you
right,
to be a king, you need subjects.
yeah.
And what's part of the word of subject? Subjugated. You have to
But that's
subjugate someone. And then it goes even further, because you also wonder, okay, so we have NASA, we have space agencies throughout the rest of the world, right?
mhm,
But the continent that where all life comes from, where astronomy and space and everything else started, which is Africa,
right,
doesn't have a space agency.
right. They're not allowed to.
We don't have a space. They don't have a space agency. Even the diaspora in the Caribbean, like where I'm from, like Trinidad and Tobago originally, no space agency. You know, no space agency in South America,
Mhm,
right? So then you're starting to wonder the only place. So you have the richest continent, the continent where all life started, no space agency, no nuclear power, no nothing.
mhm,
But you have the oligarchs on top because they're there to control the population. They're there to make it the way it is. And that type of effect means that, you know what? There's a limit and a restriction on education and knowledge. So
yes,
the problem that we had in the ancient world was most people were illiterate, like with the Vatican, for example. Like, the priests could read, but everyone else couldn't read. So everyone was like, basically beholden to the church, right? Now
right,
we have the majority of people that could read, but now the information and the knowledge is hidden, so you're not seeing it. So you could read, but you're not exposed to the information. So
Yeah.
it's like a denial of the information for you to read, to understand, to empower yourself in order to like empower the rest of the world. And the only way you could have that happen is because the people on top are suppressing knowledge. And
Right.
part of that is having certain people in power to subjugate these other people, to keep these people other people down. Like in the case of different, like social status, the social stratus in Africa, for example, where there is no investment in space, there is no investment in these other programs because the knowledge is there. It's not that the people are not intelligent; people are extremely intelligent. The problem is, it's not given the opportunity, and it's not there. So you suppress the knowledge, then nobody will be any wiser because you're so focused
Right.
on survival. And this is what I'm going back to when I first shot my movie in Morocco, Lumina. It was the
So you shot
only
it in Morocco.
yeah.
Okay. But
I
that
shot in
explains the desert. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I shot in Morocco. It was the first ever sci-fi to be shot entirely in Morocco in its history.
Wow.
One of the only to be shot in its entirety in Africa. Exterior sets, the biggest exterior sets built was by George Lucas in Tunisia, right?
Mhm.
He built exterior sets for like Star Wars, but the biggest interior sets ever built in Africa are basically our sets for Lumina, 50,000
Wow.
square feet or more. And haven't you ever noticed that nobody shoots sci-fi in Africa?
I've thought of that because even I watch a lot of African movies now. None of them are sci-fi. They're thrillers.
Even studio
They're
films,
rom coms. None of them are sci-fi.
and even studio films.
Right. And then you added a romance plot in there as well with the ex girlfriend and the main character, while the main character is looking for this new girl that he felt attached to, that is the one who disappears. Um,
Right.
so
She's an
it's
old
the
friend
nuances of
that's
that.
in love with him. She's an old friend that's in love with him that comes back, and the whole she the whole thing happens and everything else, and she's now going on this journey. But like with some women, especially in her character, she has ulterior motives, right?
Right.
So and she goes on this journey with them with the rest of his friends, and his close friend who's a crazy conspiracy theorist, which is George, which is Ken Lawson, good friend of mine, and
Hmm.
he's like the resident expert on this because he studies this. He's into this.
Right.
He's educated in this. He knows what's going on. You know what I mean? And he has that bit of comedy with it as well too. It's like I
Yeah.
mean the movie is tongue in cheek. It does have camp in it. But at the same time, it like deals with real issues.
And I think that's a cool way to kind of incorporate, make people leave a movie thinking about things, because we all say, you'll go to the end of earth for this person, and that's great until that's tested. And then once it's
Really,
tested, it's like, yeah,
questions
it's like,
really.
I gotta go to work Monday. I don't got time to be going looking for
Yeah,
you.
I'm too
You
busy
know
to
what I
do
mean?
that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
This I'm not putting this
yeah. I
much
got I
energy.
gotta go. I gotta go to this basketball game. I gotta go on vacation. You know what I mean? So I don't want to do this, right?
Right. And it's for me, it's like the thought process that I put in when parents have a child that's like kidnapped. And
Exactly.
then it's like at a certain point, they go back to work, go back into their everyday lives, hoping that at some point something just turns up. And it's that I'll never stop looking for you. Like, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to eat. I don't know what I would
Right.
do. It happens, and you figure out, hope for the best. So it's
And that's
like, I would
and
love to
that's
think that I have
perfect.
friends
That's
like,
a perfect example. That's a perfect example, Rashod. That your child gets kidnapped, right, or abducted, right, and then you're gonna go down this rabbit
right,
hole. You just like Sound of Freedom or something like that. You know what I mean? When people are gonna be like, you know what, hey, these people, these innocent children are abducted. You're gonna go look for them,
right,
right? So now
right.
just apply that to my loved one has been abducted by aliens. Whether it's abduction by a person or by aliens, they're abducted. They're gone.
They're gone, and you have no idea where
Bottom
they're
line
at.
is they're gone. You have to find out what happened to them.
Right.
So people saying, "Oh well, I don't know if I'll do that." No, no, no. You would do that if someone took your child or took your wife.
Right.
Like with Liam Neeson. With Taken,
Exactly.
right? The only difference, really,
Exactly.
the only difference in concept is an alien abducted your girl, the one that might want to be your wife. You won't be kind of curious as to where she is and what's happening to her, or like you wouldn't want to go and look for her and find out what's going on. And if it's extraordinary, like in the situation where it's something that you can't explain, your mind is going to be thinking even harder in terms of what happened to her, and what you want
Yeah.
to do, and how you're going to try to get her back. So that's what I wanted to put in
That's
the
me
audience mind.
in that situation. Yeah, in a alien abducted kind of situation, and everybody kind of sees like this light flashes, light goes away, chick disappears. Like you would you would think you would go practically crazy just because you can't understand what just happened, and you should be somewhere like writing on walls mumbling to yourself because it doesn't make sense. Like I don't know what that was. How do you fix this? No one's going to believe this.
Hmm.
And I think that's even the harder part. Like no one's going to believe any of this. So what are you supposed to do? I think the concept is amazing. I just
Thank you, appreciate that.
it's like, yeah, Stargate meets Taken. Like I love it. I'm antsy. I got like what, almost 2 weeks to wait to watch it now. So it's like that anticipation is like peaking right now.
I
Um,
appreciate that. It's refreshing to hear that people are like interested in the concept because it's different, and I don't want to be boring with my. I don't want to do recycle like ideas. I see
yeah,
too much recycle ideas in Hollywood right now.
yeah. What you're doing, if it's intentionally or inadvertently, is pushing black minds and brown minds into, I can go and create something like this. I've thought of things like this, but I didn't think that there was a lane for me to get into. And then understanding that you can facilitate some things, make this happen, and then go and create something like that as well. And it pushes me in that space that everyone, a lot of people, I won't say everyone, a lot of people now have tapped into, oh, I can go be a country singer because Beyonce made a country album, even though there were black country people forever.
Oh yeah, and going back ages ago,
Seeing it in a
man.
representation there, yeah, now you have this new age representation, and it's like, oh, I can do something like that. I've actually always liked this kind of music. I just never want to tell anyone. And it's now that it's accepted, people are kind of venturing themselves over there and like finding artists and listening to music and getting hip to it. So I think what you're doing is going to get people that are sci-fi nerds and sci-fi enthusiasts to say, we can go make our own thing like this. Like,
That's that's
let's make
what
some
that's what
black
I would love,
aliens.
and thank you for bringing up that point. I would love to see that. I love to see
Yeah.
more. I love to see more black and brown filmmakers and filmmakers of color and black filmmakers do stuff like this because we need it. There's new ideas
Yeah.
needed in Hollywood, man. You're talking about 56 billion or more, like in revenue not earned because they're not promoting to our people in the community. And they published
Right.
that recently, and nobody's batting the eyelash, and they're saying, "Well, the industry's failing. The industry's not doing well. Theater's not doing well. You know, movie studios are not doing well." Well, I mean, you're not doing the content. You don't want to do the content.
Yeah.
It's
You're not
really,
doing it for what we
what it
want.
really is. What it really is, Rashad, is you don't want to do the content. You know it's
Yeah.
there. You can make more movies for people of color and black communities, but you don't want to do it.
Right.
That's what it is. It's not about you don't know that there's like a revenue that can't be earned there. No, no, no. You know the revenue could be earned because this every studio gets the stats. They know. They spend
Yeah.
millions of dollars every year on statistics and surveys and analysis of the industry in box office. You knew that.
Yeah.
You knew that for the past 3, 4 decades. It's just like I'm telling somebody was saying to me, "Oh, black people don't watch movies. They don't watch black movies abroad in foreign markets." I'm like, that's not true. I'm like, since black music came out, since jazz, reggae, calypso, all these other things came out, R&B, rap music came out and went to the rest of the world. What were they listening to? They were listening to black artists.
Right.
And if you can listen to black artists and black music, then basically that means you can watch black movies.
It's it.
If you
There's just
listen to black
there's so
music,
much to that,
if
man.
you listen to black music, listen to this. If you listen to calypso, reggae, rap, R&B, like jazz, and you listen to that, and you're listening to it religiously, like some of the old rock players, like from Eric Clapton to everything else, listen to it 12 hours in this garage every day, you will watch a black movie.
Right. But they're not exposing it to
Ah, but then
that
they're
audience.
saying,
They
okay,
don't know.
but black actors are low on pre-sales internationally. They're low on sales internationally. No, 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 no. You are saying that because
Yeah.
you don't want films going out there in the medium showing black actors or black actresses in positions of power or in educated roles or roles that make them look good because it makes it look the community good and it empowers the community. So what do you say? Oh, they're not marketable internationally. Okay, so then why the hell are they
Right.
listening to Nicki Minaj and Jay-Z internationally?
Right. Right. Wu
You
Tang
and it's in
Clan's
your ear.
biggest audience
It's
was
in
in
your ear.
China, in
Yeah, it's in
Japan.
your ear. When Wu Tang went to Japan, when Wu Tang was in
Yeah.
Japan, and they did a tour of Japan, 'cause I grew up a Wu Tang fan. You know what I mean? And they went in
Yeah.
Japan. They're big in Japan. You're telling me they're watching your music videos, listening to your music, but they won't watch your movies?
Right.
How does that make sense?
It goes back to
It's,
that
it's all
censorship.
it's all illusion. It's all the illusion and manipulation to control content and what content is created. That's why I'm so happy that God blessed us with this opportunity to do this movie because I'm hoping like what you're saying to be a trailblazer to like create other opportunities or inspire other people to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely going to inspire. It's going to inspire people, especially like our people, to do it. Like again, they got mad because they wanted to put black people in Star Wars. Like that became a problem. Like we can't be a part of that. Like
No,
that's
no, no,
their
that's not your
thing.
thing.
We got to stay
It's not your
away.
thing. No, it's not your thing.
Yeah,
It's not for you.
yeah.
Not for me. No,
It's
that's
like no,
that that
that
that,
can't be
that
us.
sci-fi is not for you because sci-fi is the highest grossing genre. That's why it's not
Right.
for you. It's where all the
And if you
money is.
tap in, you'll take over
It's where all the
because our
money
creativity
is.
is crazy.
Exactly. Your mind can go places, right? Yeah, that's all the money is. The highest grossing genre in Hollywood is sci-fi. So then, who's gonna guard that?
And it's interesting because what did you think when, like, as a person who is again studied in the sci-fi world, studied in the science world, studied in like history, like deep going into history, and then you see our military create a space force with no explanation of what they do, no explanation of where they're going, when they're going, how they're going, what they're training. Like we just don't know. So you say, oh, they're protecting Earth. It's like
Mm.
from what? Like, what do you have a military force for to protect Earth? What are you protecting from? What are you? Because it's beyond Air Force. Air Force can control the skies. You can do what you need to do from up
Right.
there. You can get into the outer rings of the atmosphere and hit satellites, whatever. What are you doing with the military force that is specifically reserved for space? And there's no
Well,
explanation. And now it's just a part of the military with a budget.
and I love your questions on that. Um, First you have to ask yourself the question: why are they inventing an enemy?
Mm-hmm.
Throughout history, we've seen people invent enemies in order to create top secret programs, in order to siphon money, to take money, to have control over the populace. How do you do that? You
Right.
have to create an enemy. If everybody look, it's like the Black Panthers with the Rainbow Coalition. Why was
Hmm.
it dismantled? Because of the Rainbow Coalition. Because they're bringing poor black, brown, and white people together. So in order for you to control something, in order for you to control something, you have to create an enemy. You have to create division, divide and conquer, the old
Yeah.
British way, right? So we have a threat, so we create a space force, right? So, but a lot of that money is going in people's pockets and private contractors' pockets, and and yeah, so we have this enemy now. Here it is. Um, there is another there is another facet to the whole alien thing, that is fallen angels disguising themselves as
Mm.
aliens. So here's my theory. These are one of my theories. Fallen angels, as you know, like even in the book of Enoch, they gave knowledge to the humans. They bred with the humans. They created giants, Nephilim. Nephilims lost their bodies because of the flood, etc. So then they started possessions. Possessions are basically like, when exorcisms happen, they go in and they call in the name of the demon, as they like to say, or the Nephilim's father, which is the angel, because the mother
Hmm.
is a human mother, and that's how they exorcise these people. But one thing that people don't talk about is the fact that these Nephilim also are liars.
Mm.
Suppose they're lying and saying that yes, we're and now this doesn't change my opinion that there's life outside of this planet, this universe. I believe that, and I believe they're
Right.
visiting us. But I also believe there's also another nefarious fact to this, is that everyone's forgetting the spiritual part of this. And you create a space force because you realize that you've either been encountered by extraterrestrials from other planets, and also you're dealing with a spiritual realm in this universe and in on this planet that you don't want to explain to everyone.
Wow.
So you create a space race, you put money in it, and guess what? And another thing too is that space, like if you notice, the space program, Russia, China, and the U.S. all collaborate together on the space program.
Right.
So if you're enemies, why are you going to collaborate with your enemy on a space program?
Yeah. And now India just got involved too.
Yeah, India's doing it too. And pretty much they're going to try to include South Africa next, probably.
Yeah.
So then you ask yourself the question, if you're really enemies, why would you collaborate on a space program?
And occupy a ship to
Yeah. If this is your enemy
get
in the eyes of the public, in the eyes of the media,
for 3
why are
months.
you funding a space program together?
Yeah.
I believe that this whole world is a deception, brother.
No, I think that the depth of watching the Matrix the whole way through, like each series, and understanding what that is. It's, again, you get a black woman, which I didn't even know it was a black woman that created this series, but you get a black woman that tells the depths of a story and completely hides it within action and like thriller and sci-fi, but there's like this story is there, and it's like if you start here and you end here, all these things in the middle are what the problem is, and you have to find out how this problem is affecting your start and your end. And understanding that and then going back and watching it the whole way through again, your mind is blown,
Mm-hmm.
because now it makes sense differently. It's like, oh, this is nothing about a computer. Like, this has nothing to do with computers. This is like real life reality, like the truth of life and the world and existence is being hidden from you. And you can't find this out. And if you do, you're destroyed.
Right, right, right.
And it's that it's that conversation that happens amongst like the the really deep sci-fi fans and nerds of that industry that say there's a deeper meaning, which is why I asked, like, what's your underlining story?
Online story is, if you're faced with extraterrestrials and you're faced with an extreme condition or a circumstance, like, will you go at what lengths will you go to save that person, especially if it's alien abduction? And what are the
Yeah.
psychological effects of that alien abduction on the people that you love and the people around you? Because it's something that people don't talk about. Because people, I've spoken to guys in the military and the Marines, former Marines, and the normal guys.
Hmm.
They're they're not under medication. They're not crazy, and they talk about their experiences in the military, and it's real. And how do you discount that?
Yeah.
How do you say, well,
Yeah.
you know what, man, you don't know what you're talking about? No, them and their platoon and their reconnaissance mission saw the whole thing. How do you explain that? So that's why I thought it was the relevance of this movie in terms of the psychological effect on people and abduction and everything else, and the whole alien phenomenon, which I think is real.
Yeah.
And it goes deep because you have people outside this universe, you have intelligent life outside this universe that have visited us, and you also have the spiritual element as
Yeah.
well. Angels, fallen angels, everything else, which is real. Exorcisms are real.
Yeah. Everyone wants
Now you're
to.
taking into account now. So how do we fit this into our life? How does this affect us as a human race? And for me, I think that um, the reason why I was talking early on, the suppression of knowledge, is the reason why they don't want us to know the truth.
Yeah.
A lot of what we're doing right now is speculating, assuming, and intuition is telling us this. What we read, what we're exposed to, we're trying to go down that deep rabbit hole, and there's a lot of truth to it, and there's also a lot of mystery,
Yeah.
and you're trying to figure out where you fit into this. Like
Yeah.
how do you fit? Like if and to be honest with you, I think that there's gonna be, like, from the congressional hearings and everything else that happened with Senate. I think we're gonna have a big reveal soon, from what I'm
Oh,
hearing.
it's bound to happen because even if it doesn't come from us, it's coming out in other countries, and a lot of times it comes out, it hits the internet, is blocked, it disappears, it goes away, and then you kind of like find it somewhere else. But
Right.
it's definitely coming out. It's
How how
definitely coming out.
how do you feel about that though?
I mean, I feel like it's. I think a lot of information in life you have to really want to um, allow what's given to you, and you'll never understand much of anything. Like you have to go out and find it and research, and again, reading between the lines, questioning things that don't make sense, talking to other people who have more knowledge on certain subjects. Um, it's there's a lot that happens that we will never know. Um, there's a lot of things in secret that we'll never really find out about, probably in our lifetimes. But it's a matter of wanting to find out more and getting as close to truth as possible. And I think that's where a lot of people don't want to do. I think a lot of people are scared of the truth. I think a lot of people really don't
Oh
want
yeah,
to know
people are
the
scared of the truth. They're
nuances
scared of the unknown.
around what really goes on in this world.
They're scared of the truth. They're
Yeah.
scared of the unknown.
As it is, yeah, the Bible's great as long as it stays in the book. Like as long as it's a book, cool. You start talking about like again, real life fallen angels. I don't want to have to deal with that in real life. I don't want to have to deal with an exorcism in real life. I don't want to think that there's a spirit world living within my space that I can or cannot be attached to at any point. Like
Mhm.
nobody wants that part. You want the pretty Bible part. Like read it, go to church on Sundays, it stays in the book, we're all good.
Yeah,
You
and
don't
that's
want
it.
the extra attachment to it. Like you don't want to question. That's what I've said for a while. I would never want to be the president of this country. There's too much to know that I don't want to know anything about in certain atmospheres. I don't want to know all the potential attacks that are going on a daily basis. Like you would never sleep correctly again.
And sometimes you don't see correctly. But
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think this is a century of the real. I
Yeah.
think
Oh no, absolutely.
I don't think I think this is the age of enlightenment. I think that a lot of things are going to come out that people are going to be very uncomfortable with. They're not going to accept. I think that people are, and I totally agree with you. People are afraid of the unknown, and they're afraid to talk about demons, angels,
Yeah.
extraterrestrials. They're just like watch, go to church, watch your movies and your TV, go on vacation, work 9 to 5, and
Hmm.
retire.
And
But
and know that
but
other stuff ain't real.
that's not going to happen. You know,
Yeah.
it's so funny. It's so funny. In 2006, between 2006 and 2008, I told my parents, I'm like, yo, we have to watch out for 2020. And 2020 came,
Hmm.
and it was a big change for the world. It's a turning point. And the
Yeah.
next 2 to 3 years, you're about to see some very big things happen in the
Yeah.
extraterrestrial world, in spirituality, in terms of war, everything. So I think that people have been trying to avoid it, will not be able to
Hmm.
avoid it afterwards. It's going to
No,
confront them.
because
It's going to confront them right in their face, and they won't be able. And then they'll have to come to terms with, let's deal with this now. They'll have to talk about it.
yeah, it's a situation in a moment in life where if you're paying attention, you see it happening. If you are oblivious and the highlight of your day and your highlight of your concern is LeBron James and his son are playing basketball, it's my friends ask me questions. I answer them. They're like, "Oh, but this hasn't happened before." Like, not that happened in 42. Like you have to know there's a track line. Like these things happen time and time again, over and over. It's a different generation doing the same thing, and they're doing it a
Right.
different way, but they're doing the same thing. Like I'm fascinated with World War II, like absolutely fascinated, because it has always been a question up until now of how do you
Mhm.
just allow a country to do what they allow Germany to do. And now in today's understanding and seeing it, it's like, how do you just allow Russia to do what Russia's doing? And then think as long as it stays there, it doesn't affect me until you're pulled in, because it does.
But another
Conquering
interesting
is
point though.
conquering.
Yeah, another interesting point about that is this is all neo-colonialism going on.
Yeah.
The World War II
Yeah.
was really World War One and World War II was about partition of Africa.
Yeah.
Because you know why? That was the main thing. Because most of these countries, like for example, France. France is a poor country.
Hmm.
France is only rich because of what they stole from Africa. From
And
French
then
people.
pulled Africa into their army to
Right,
help
right,
defend
right, right.
them
The
from
Legion, the
Germany.
Legionnaires, and everything else is pulled in. All the Africans
Yeah.
are pulled into that. So,
Nobody
so
knows
we go
that.
back to like, yeah, like I mean, like, the World War really was about cutting up the world to get you, because all the Europeans took a piece of it.
Yeah. It was
Well,
occupation.
yeah. So are they really at war? It was really the Great European War. That's what it
Hmm.
was. The first Great European War and the second Great European War.
To find out who's going to conquer someone else's land, who's going to get
Right.
what, and
Yeah.
how
And
much
then
of that
after
what
that,
are you taking.
right. And after the World War, what happened? Gold standard got rid of with the Nixon shock. All the countries like in Africa, South America, everywhere else, and all the countries below the equator
Yeah.
lost power.
Yeah.
So it was no longer gold standard. It was all based on the international currency, which is a fiat currency. You know, it's
Right.
no longer the gold standard. Then you got people in Africa like Gaddafi and the rest of them trying to establish an African World Bank, and an African gold reserve.
And then Arab summer happened. You're not
Yep,
doing that.
not happening.
You're not doing that.
Not happening. So, I mean, for me, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I know the Ukraine war is a serious one, but There's a lot of money laundering going on in that war. There's a lot of things that don't affect the rest of the world. Like, look, if you take one of the Indian foreign ministers came out and said, well, this is not our war. Ukraine is not
Mm-hmm.
our war. Don't ask us to participate. It's not our war. Some African leaders do the same thing. That's not our war.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with us? We're not going to be dragged into a conflict like in World War I and World War II, where it had nothing to do with any countries of color, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
It was just breaking up Africa, And look at the remnants of it. My wife being Moroccan, basically, the whole Moroccan, state, the Moroccan country was divided into Algeria and Morocco. They're all the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like that's the old African Amazigh kingdom, and it was split in half because now you have Algeria because France split it in half because they want to take the resources.
You want the resources from taking it.
Yeah. So was it
Is
really a world war? No.
it was a fight amongst again, like you said, amongst European nations
That's what it
to
is.
say,
It is
I
deeply
want that
true.
piece of Africa, and the other person saying,
Exactly.
no, I want that piece of Africa, and now we're going to fight over who gets that piece of Africa.
And look what's happening now.
The same thing.
ECOWAS is against black revolutionaries
Mm-hmm.
that are trying to progress their countries and that are not puppets that refuse to be overthrown in the most coups ever seen on a continent outside of South America. Any type of progressive government will be destabilized. And what's
Yeah.
happening? And so like this whole world is really deeper than what we're thinking about. And then you add aliens into there, and you add extraterrestrials, and you add like the whole exorcisms and the Vatican and everything else involved, and then you have like one big melting pot of like BS.
And you never, and I think that's the thing. You it's a show that I watched, and the lawyer was like, my job's not to find the truth. My job is to create muck. And
Ah,
she was saying, all I do is create muck. I make the water so muddy that you can't see reality from it any longer. And as long as
right.
I can do that, I win as a lawyer.
And why
And
is that?
it's like, because if you can't see truth, it's like you just go with whatever you think at that point. You can't look
Ah,
at it anymore.
media
So it's
brainwashing, media brainwashing and control.
right. So it's when she said that, I was like, yo, that's life. Like I'm gonna throw so much nonsense in these moments when you're actually starting to figure things out. I'm gonna give you so much chaos that you're not even gonna pay attention to this anymore.
Right.
And it's I have a small circle of friends that I have these kind of conversations with. Every time something is happening in Senate or in Congress, there's always some BS happening on the outside. And it's like, oh, go focus on this. Oh, this album is out. Go watch this. Oh, Kendrick and Drake are having a beef. Go watch that. Meanwhile, there's
Distraction.
bills being passed and laws
Distraction.
happening, and yeah, Supreme Court changing things. And you didn't see that happening because you're focused on the golden ball over there.
Right.
Like,
It's all
ooh,
distraction.
squirrel.
It's all
Yeah. So
distraction.
it's
That's like in ancient Rome. They had in order to curb dissent, in order to curb populism, they have to create a distraction.
yeah.
So what is this world? This world is almost like the Fourth Reich. They have to create a distraction. The distraction is the media.
Is definitely going.
And the distraction is okay.
And
Create a distraction, and then basically the distraction then leads you down this rabbit hole, and then you forget about what's really happening, like what you're talking about. This bill is passed.
right,
This is happening. Oh well, you're not watching that. Currency is about to go crazy. You
right,
know, and the currency valuation, everything else is about to go crazy in the next year or two. And you're not watching that because
right.
you're watching that two black men friggin' battle each other. You know,
Yeah.
which is like
Which is
both
it's
BS to
nuts.
begin with. You
It's
know,
nuts because I had a conversation with someone, and we were talking about they were saying something about inflation. And I was like, yo, you literally had a senator slip up and say there has to be a poor class. And as long as we can maintain a certain level of poor, then we can keep the economy balanced. And I'm sure he wasn't supposed to say that, out loud, but it's we have to have a certain level of unemployment. We have to have a certain level of poverty. There has to be a certain level of inferiority when it comes to financial stability that has to maintain itself. That has to be there for us to be able to survive financially as a country. And I was like, it's the reality of that. As long as you keep unemployment above this number and below this number, you're good. As long as wages stay above this number and below this number, you're
Mm-hmm.
good. The
And you're
problem was
and
y'all
you're
started
forgetting
giving
you're
money
forgetting one
out.
part of it too, brother. As long as you as long as you create that type of situation, then you're creating also division.
Yeah.
And if you create division, you're not focusing on who's creating the division. So
It's
then
just
all
this division. It doesn't matter who did it.
right, because you're focusing on that, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I need to survive.
Right.
It's like constant survival mode. If you're in constant survival mode, you can't really learn anything. You can't progress.
Nah. That's the reason I moved out of New York. The
Ah,
reason I moved from New York is like you couldn't do anything besides work. So it's your life is going to work at all costs, and all you can do is
hmm.
show up to. Like I can't do anything else. I can't go party. I can't go on vacation. I can't go enjoy the parks in the city. Like I have to go to work. Like
Come on,
the
read.
demand for me at work is that high.
You
You
can't
know what I
read
mean?
as much as you want to read. You can't learn as
I
much
was
as
like,
you
I
want
gotta
to
get out of
learn.
here because I'm this, and, and there's a lot of people that are just existing, and sometimes you have to have your mind challenged to find out what else is there outside of that.
Not only
And
existing,
again,
they're
I think
existing in a vegetative state.
yeah, and don't know it,
They're zombies.
don't even know it. They have no idea.
We're creating
They have
zombies
no
out of
idea.
society. You see, like I mean, even with that, like what I went back to, like you have to have a poor class in order to control.
Yeah,
If you have an educated population that is not warring with each other, you can't control that. It's uncontrollable. It's like
yeah,
social revolution. That's what social revolution is built out of. Like, and the whole problem is to curb social revolution. And the only way to curb social revolution is to have all of these programs, these things, these initiatives that are against people coming together.
yeah. And it's interesting. There was a speech I was watching. I can't remember who it was now, and the person was saying basically media has set up your television programming from 7 p.m. until midnight. So for 5 hours, you're doing nothing constructive. Like you are literally just tuned into whatever it is they want you on for 5 hours
Mhm.
straight. Whereas that time could be used doing something else, and you're not doing that because here's where you need to be. You need to be in front of the TV so that you can be caught up on these things. And now programming has changed. It's no longer a script, it's all reality television, and you're watching it. This one's on, and then right after this one, that one's on. Right after that one, the recap is on. Right after the recap, another one comes on. And it's just like you're in this cycle of not expanding yourself in any kind of way. You're just tuned into, again, the nonsense and the distractions. So
Mhm.
it's you're not paying attention to anything. Like I watch 4 different news programming channels, and then I listen to 8 different podcasts like throughout the day. It's I make sure I'm grabbing information from different places and I'm comparing them to each other and saying, well, this is right because this person said this, and then this person said that, and then they actually said the same thing on this part. So it's like you have to find out where the truth is and then go and research it. I get upset. I get on Twitter. I start arguing with people. And I'm like, I'm arguing with politicians over something that I know is a fact that you're telling me isn't even real. Like, dude, there's no way. And then when
Mhm.
I go into the congressional and quote it back over to them, the conversation stops. Bill on this day that 82 of you signed, there's no more conversation now because now you actually have information to attack back with. And as long as you don't do that, they can make you sound anything. And then at that point, you're a threat. We can't talk to you. You're getting blocked. I need to report your account. Like it's just, you can't challenge the powers with their
Mhm.
own thing.
Yeah, but you could if there's a social revolution, people come together. And the problem is that there's so much division and distraction that they're trying to stop people from coming together.
Yeah.
Like, look at it right now. We live in a two-party system.
Yeah.
Independent candidate can't debate in a presidential election on live TV. He's not
Right.
allowed.
At all. Doesn't have a
And
chance.
and people don't question that. And I say that to people all the time. Like, why aren't you questioning that? That doesn't seem off to you in a democracy. If you're living in a democracy and not living in an autocracy, then why does that not resonate with you?
Why can you tell someone who clearly has, he probably, I think he has like a, maybe like a fifth of overall vote. And you're saying like, we can't even listen to your opinion on anything. We don't want to hear your stance like that. That doesn't matter. I think everybody that's running for president should be on stage and
Yep.
everybody gets the same question. And if I like that guy who only polls at 2%, suddenly he's now polling at 50, 60% because people are actually listening to what they're saying. You don't want people that aren't in the establishment
Mhm.
coming over to rule the establishment.
Can't control that way, brother. You
Yeah.
gotta control. The only way you can control is that you X out all alternative opinions. There's no way.
Yeah.
You can't hold and control anything by having multiple opinions that you don't control. So if you don't
Yeah.
control those multiple opinions, then basically you have nothing to worry about. You're living basically in a bubble that basically is only created by the people who create the bubble. And then anything that you try to get outside that bubble is basically, you know, persona non grata. That's what it
Yeah.
is. you're,
Yeah.
you're like it's like I was watching Dr. Cornell West the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and I said on his thread, I think he liked it. I can't remember. I said, wake me up when someone's allowed to debate in a presidential election. That's it. That's the independent. When you're allowed to debate in that election,
Yeah.
that's what will turn the tides. But everyone is buying into the rules that people set without questioning the rules that have been set. And they're like, I have to vote, I have to vote, I have to vote.
Right.
No, you don't have to vote.
Right.
You need to ask and question. Life is about God.
And I think
God puts you here to question everything. Question everything. Ask everything.
to question everything. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the objective of life, is to get to an understanding of what that quote unquote life is, and finding out what kind of person you really need to be, want to be, have to
Mhm.
be. um and I think people again just kind of exist and miss that entire messaging. um you come to earth, you're supposed to leave it better than you found it, but you're supposed to question anything until there's a full understanding, and there's a lot of acceptance in how life goes on a day-to-day basis that nobody questions anymore, because questioning it makes you rebellious, makes you an outcast, um get in trouble in school for asking too many questions, like
And
the
people are sheep. People are herd. There's a lot of herd mentality in this world right now. There's a
yeah.
herd mentality where you go online. I'll give you an example. I was doing an interview with myself and Ken were doing an interview with Jason Lee on Hollywood Unlocked just recently.
Hmm.
and that's coming out soon. And I said, why is our community so brainwashed in terms of like believing that only non-black studios can put out black content that you have to actually like say that it was great. So, but when black studios put out content, like independent black studios like ourselves, and it's independent, and yes, we don't have like the biggest names on it, but it's great content. It's a great
Right.
movie.
Right.
It, it's as A-list and looks as big as any other feature film right now that's coming from the studios. But you have this negative judgment all of a sudden because you're not you're not Warner Brothers or Sony,
Mm-hmm. So it's
right?
automatically judged.
But if I were to take Ken out of it and put like Kevin Hart in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing, doing the same comedy, doing the same exact thing in that trailer, people will be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I want to see this movie."
Right.
So I'm like, but what about the independent? What about the upcoming black actors and actresses that are not as big as Kevin, even though we like Kevin? What about them that come out with something that's great comedy, that's great
Right.
content, that's independent? Then you have to understand this isn't brainwashing and conditioning that goes along with that. That you're not able to decipher and differentiate from what's good content and what's bad content. So you're basically going along with the herd, and you're brainwashed to believe that only content that comes out from majors are the best content.
Because talent's talent.
Exactly.
Talent is talent. Like if you are good at what you do and nobody knows who you are, you can be amazing. And that's when they call it the breakout role. Like, no, you're talented. Like most people in theater, you don't know who these people are. You go to a great play, you don't know who that person is. Talented people that are
Yeah,
just
it's like you go to Hamilton. You go to Hamilton and see
kind of
like
brushed away.
Hamilton and like some people didn't know who the hell people were on Hamilton,
Right. Right.
and they're great thespians, they're great actors, right?
Hmm.
And so same principle applies here. You see a trailer, you see something funny, but it's not a name that you know, so automatically you feel that it's not good because you've
You
been
feel like
conditioned
it's
to believe that.
you feel like it's low budget, low quality,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, exactly.
it's not gonna
When it's
perform where
not,
you want it to, and it's
when it's
coming out
not,
the
like for
same level of
example,
quality.
exactly what I'm saying, brother. That's right. Because like with me, I did test screenings for the movie, and we had early critics reactions and stuff, and they love it.
Yeah.
And they said, and some of them were like, "Yo, how much you shoot this movie for? Like 20, 30 million?" Like, and they're saying big numbers because it looks like a big movie. It looks like an expensive movie, but the fact that you don't know some of the actors in it and it comes out with a trailer, all of a sudden you feel like, yeah, yeah, I'm like my opinion is gold compared to everything else because it's not a studio movie. So I'm gonna basically pan the movie because I don't know these people in it.
Yeah. If you were like you said, if you were to keep everything, script, scenes, acting ability, all the same, you change out your main character and put in Toby Maguire, we can run with this. Because they
Oh,
feel
it's an
like
A
that
movie.
person,
It's an
yeah,
A
they feel
movie.
like that person is now a stamp to say that the movie's good. And the person is the person's a person. He doesn't make the movie good. The movie's good regardless.
Exactly.
Now, who you add in there is who you're trying to add versus an approval. That doesn't change the quality of the movie.
And then you see with some movies, you have big A-list actors, and then a B and C script and movie that's terrible.
Terrible. I know many
And
of
then
them.
you're like, okay, but I love this actor, but I'm I'm intelligent enough to say, yeah, I think you're a great actor, but this movie was total garbage.
It was garbage.
Yeah, and I've seen many of those.
But
Like
again, you have
I didn't laugh
but you
one
have
minute in
people.
some of them, and I'm like, I met some of these guys. I went to their house and like in Hollywood, and like I'm like, brother, I can't really tell you something about this because the movie's just not good. It's not like what your other
Yeah.
movie was. But that's an honest opinion. But I could say that. Other people can't do that because sometimes
Right.
people are so conditioned and brainwashed into that they're like, oh my gosh, I have to say that this movie is great because this person's in it. And if I go against the norm, I look like the outlier, and then everyone's going to ridicule and say something to me. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. What?
Yeah.
You're not going along with the rest of us. The rest of us are saying this movie is great because this guy's in it, but it doesn't look good. Oh no, 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 no! This guy's
Yeah.
in it. So I saw that with the
Yeah.
marketing of this
No.
movie. I'm
My
like,
friends that when I told them I didn't like Renaissance.
say that again.
No. I said no, my friends did that to me when I told them I didn't like the Renaissance album. They're like, how can you not like it? I was like, dude, I mean, okay. But the hype that you're giving it, I don't feel the same way. And
That's independent. That's
dare one say
independent.
anything. Yeah. Dare one say anything about Beyonce and not be an approval of everything that she does. It's a death wish.
Listen. I love the growing up. I love Michael Jackson, a number of other actors, but musicians. But like, if they came up with a song I didn't like, I'm gonna tell them I don't like the song.
Yeah.
I
You
didn't. I didn't
understand?
like everything. I didn't like Michael when he did Scream. Yeah,
Correct. To date, I'm still not a fan of the song.
I'm
Like
not a fan of the song. Like, I mean, and then people are telling me, "But it's Michael." I'm like, "What's your point?"
that doesn't matter.
I'm one of the biggest Michael fans. Like, I work with Greg Fillinganes. He worked on my music for this movie, and Greg was Michael Jackson's musical director and arranger.
Hmm.
And Greg is a good friend of mine. He worked with Michael throughout his whole career and Stevie Wonder. But you don't hear me saying, "Hey," and I'll tell Greg, I'm like, I just didn't like Scream. What do you want me to
Yeah.
tell you? I
It
said I love it.
do it for me. That's all.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. It's being able to and it not be taken as you taking a shot at somebody. It's just I didn't receive it the same way. Like I don't feel it. And that's fair. And I can still say that I love the person. I just wasn't feeling this. That's all.
exactly. You can still
And
see
people
another
can't take that.
person. I still love Michael. I still love Michael, but I just didn't like
Yeah.
that song. I love Beyonce, but some songs I just don't like by Beyonce.
Yeah. Nope.
I just didn't feel it.
Absolutely.
I love certain artists, but certain like even actors too. Like Eddie Murphy's who I grew up with watching. I watched my father watching Sanford and Sons and like Richard Pryor and everybody else. But are you going to tell me that some comedy is better than Sanford and Son right now? No, some of it's not better.
Yeah.
No, they're not. No, they're not funnier than Red
And that's
Fox.
it.
No,
It's
they're not funnier than Richard Pryor in this one. No,
I'm
thank you, but no,
I'm
they're not.
yeah, no. I'm anticipating watching Beverly Hills Cop, but I'm
Me
also
too.
cringing at the thought of please don't mess Axel Foley up. Like
I'm afraid of that.
don't mess up this role. And it's how I felt about Coming to America too. It was just like just leave us alone. Just don't do it. But
Yeah,
if he can be Axel Foley on Beverly Hills Cop and not be Norbit or the Clumps, then it should be great. But there's a
but it's the writers
Axel Foley.
and the director and their influence on it, brother. So it could go anyway.
A Pluto Nash. You know what I mean?